Welcome everyone to all the listeners who are listening. This is New Zealand World News host Shailesh once again bringing you real people who are real experiences and real talk that we want to give an awareness to everyone. So once again today we are bringing an esteemed speaker, not just a speaker, a community driven person. You can call her different names, but politician, career politician, whatever, but she is a ground related person who works very closely with you and I as a community. And she has held so many positions in her career, whether you name it, which starts from kids like schools, board trustees, and all sorts of things. That means you can see a real person talking the real things. So today I'm going to invite Angela Dalton, the Auckland councillor, which is also Manurewa Papakura representation and representative, but also she has wore a little bit different hats in the past as well with different electorate and different boards from Manurewa and Papakura and all sorts. But today I'm going to have a very candid kind of a conversation where people tend to see what's happening in Auckland City, because Auckland City is one of our major cities, which is also economically driven for all the nation. So when there is floods, when there is community, when COVID came, when other natural disasters come, Auckland City, every country is affected. But these are the people like Angela Dalton, who is actually gives us the real insights of what really is happening around us and what really are they doing for us to keep protected and safe. So, Angela, welcome to this beautiful conversation we are going to have today. We're going to listen from you all your visions, all your positive things, all your updates for our country, for the city. And we'll then dwell into a little bit of the hot topic, which is the Maori representation, which has been a very talk of the town. And I always like to see, as my label says, working together, building our nation, because that's what we do. And that's what we should be working towards, that rather than anything race, religion, because we are the beauty of our country is we have got so many languages and we've got so many multi-diversity people in a small nation like us, but it's really very, very diverse, which is great. So welcome, Angela. This is to this conversation. And please tell me something about you first so that our listeners can understand what actually are you involved with and what are you doing, basically.
Oh, well, thank you so much for the invitation to have a chat with you this afternoon. Look, firstly, I'm a mother. I'm a mother of four children, all grown
Right.
up now, left home and have children of their own. So I
Mm,
like, and that helps with decision making when you're looking at the future
sure.
generations coming along.
Mm,
As you said, I've been involved with boards of trustees in the past. I've been on different foundations, charities, the Graham Dingle Foundation. I'm currently on the Pride Project Foundation in Clendon, which is about supporting vulnerable people. So I've had
good.
lots of ground roots work there. I was the chair of the local board in Manurewa for 8 years, and in the last two terms, this is my second term at Auckland Council.
Very
And it's an interesting time. It's very different from last term. We have a new mayor, we have different councillors elected, and so some of the views for the future of our city get a bit challenged or, changed. And it's important that we hold fast to our own values. In my mind, that's what I will do. I will hold fast to my
yeah.
personal values.
Of course. And I think first let's get into the your passion for people, your passion for community, your passion for, as you said, like when you are a parent or when you are a family, whatever, we still are individuals and we still have to take those individual decisions and all sorts of things. But that's one thing in the family. But the other thing is the whole city as your family, the whole country as your family.
Yes.
Tell us something about how did you get into this and what your views on this, like why everybody should be involved, engaged, and how you want to see our city.
Look, I think our city needs to be a safe place for everybody. Primarily, safe and happy is what we're after. And that means different things to different people, certainly.
Yeah.
But we need to ensure that we are inclusive. We've changed as a country
Hmm.
and we're a very, very young country and
Sure.
actually a very small city in the grand scheme of things. So there's no reason why we can't get to know each other and not be afraid of different cultures, ethnicities, and and we'll talk about this a bit later, but
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
biggest fear for some seem to be our Indigenous people, and that's a
Right.
curiosity for me.
Mm.
And so, how do we welcome other cultures in and make people feel at home living how they
Mm.
want to in their own culture if we can't even do that with our Indigenous partners?
Mm. No, very well said, I think, Angela, because I think this is one of the mind-boggling questions for the society of the current modernized way of living, or we call it modernized, but then we still have got not modernized thoughts. We all want the modernized cosmetization, like from here, this culture, this, and that culture, this. But then when it comes to our thoughts or treating these cultures, the treatment is one of the biggest, I think, hurdle for human. Like
Yeah.
it's not about how educated or how well intelligent you are, but how you treat people based
Yes.
on human. Isn't
A-
it? That's the key thing.
and just be kind. We don't, and the other thing that we don't do very well
Mm.
is to make sure that we make decisions. So, where I am making decisions that are going to meet the needs of our various individual cultures. And I, take, for example, intergenerational living. We're
Yeah.
not building houses or communities for intergenerational living.
Yeah.
And yet that so many of the people that live here do that. Now, the English way is
Yeah.
very different, isn't it? Everyone has their
Mm.
own house. They don't
Correct.
necessarily
Mm.
intergenerationally live, but our Pacifica, our Maori, our Asian, our Indian communities, we see want to live together. And
Yeah.
so our decisions around where housing goes, how housing is built, should be meeting the needs for every individual needs.
I think the biggest cultural decisions that we see or we find in our communities is like different backgrounds coming from a different traditional way of living. Now, that could be like, so like, for example, Europeans, they are okay with living by themselves or having their own space. Whereas the other cultural, they want other people to be living together with them, and they want houses and families to live together literally rather than living in isolation. And that's the biggest cultural difference. And to deal with this kind of situation, the policies that you guys make and that makes around it, it's all considering all these facts of realities of cultural. Is it for you, was it like good hard for the policymakers, or is it for them to really not accept or adapt, or having just different views is great because then you have got opportunity to think outside the square, but different views should have the common goal, right?
That's right. And we saw a shift in the way that Kāinga Ora are delivering housing. But
Mm.
before, well, they've changed their housing over the years, but now we are seeing bigger houses to
Right.
take bigger families and intergenerational families. And I had a look at some in Papakura about a
Mm.
month ago, deliberately built that way. So there's a
Mm.
shift in the policy from government. And we
Mm.
do need that steer from government to enable councils to be able to also do the right thing through the legislation and the national
Right.
policy standards. But what we do well, I think, and Councillor Ferry runs this, is our different advisory panels that we
Mm.
have to inform us. But we need to do a better job of getting that information back to the
Mm.
councillors.
True,
Yeah,
true.
there's a gap there.
Yeah. Do you think the community engagements or the agencies or the organizations who work within the communities are, do you think, in your view, are quite involved, integrated, quite collaborated in terms of what you see in the decision making and the policy making? Do they are considered as collaborative views to take those collaborative views?
I think council needs to do a better job of how we reach people. So when I
Right.
have a look
Yeah.
at the feedback
Hmm.
and I see that between 76 and 86% of the submissions back on a particular topic have come from European. And
Mhm.
then we look to Asian and it's 12% in Maori and it's 3% in Pacifica, 4%.
Yes. Yes.
The standard form that either
Mm.
goes through the internet or someone
Mm.
picks it up from a library
Mm.
is not reaching
Mm.
everybody, and that is why nothing changes.
Yeah.
Nothing changes because the same people are having the loudest voice, and that's
Very
not the
true.
face of our city.
You're right, absolutely right. I think when they statistical data, when they pull out through the ethnicity or through the different environmental things, when they have that statistical data, with that, whether that data needs to be considered when drawing up certain policies, or you need to look at the holistic view of every single culture as one, rather than dividing them into percentages and then making policies around that. That it doesn't matter if you're 1%, we can ignore them, or 3% you can ignore them. Is that something that you think that needs to be a little bit changed, or is it going to be more transparent when it comes to representation and communication?
And perhaps we need to do that policy by policy and decision by decision to
Mm.
ensure who that policy is going to impact the most and really
Correct.
target their
Yeah.
audience. There has to be some common ground around basic policy,
Mm.
um, but there needs to also be some specific tailoring of
Yeah.
policy to enable the desired outcome. So if we can,
Mm.
have a look at, and we only get that from when we are talking. And
Correct.
that's the role of counsellors. And what
Mm.
has happened is that over the years, when we first started in the big super city,
Mm.
when we would have the annual submissions, people could come in and speak to all of the counsellors. It'd take a few days. That's our
Mm.
job. We should be doing that. They stopped all that.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
they're cherry picking. When I say they, I mean the organisation is
Yes.
cherry
Yes.
picking
Correct.
major stakeholders. That's not our people. So
Mm.
we need the opportunity to really get out and speak to our
Yeah.
people and get a good understanding of what is going to work for them and
True.
take
True.
that back to the table.
So, do you think the political interference or the political label that we have got, when actually being a counselor, it's like all about the community, all about the local people and everyone inclusive, rather than anything. But then when it comes to political division, or when it comes to political parties, because you have wore that hat for a few, and you know exactly what sort of things needs to be improved and how it can be better when it comes to interference of organizations or political color that we needs to put in. What's your take on that and view on that when it comes to that interference? Is it playing a bigger role, or is it disturbing the whole fabric of our society?
It stalls us. So in local government, there
Yeah,
is no place for political parties, but that
correct.
does happen. And we
Mm,
can see quite clearly that there are politicians towing the party line, which
mm,
might help them in their own political career or
mm.
even with their re-election.
Yeah,
But it isn't actually taking the whole city forward. If we have
that's
a
right.
vision for our city,
Mm,
of what we want our city to look like in the future, then we're
mm,
going to have to make some decisions that might mean we don't get re-elected, but at least you can sleep well at night knowing that you've
yeah,
done the best thing for the future generations
mm,
of the city. But as
mm,
long as someone's tied to a political party, in my view,
mm,
they're compromised. They're compromised in their vote and
mm.
the pressure that they might get applied and how they vote.
And I think also the influence of that is not really help the community to move forward, or the nation to move forward, right? Basically.
That's correct. So one of the things I read a document this week,
Hmm.
and it might have been around the congestion charging document we discussed yesterday. And
Yes.
one of the risks was political willpower. So we
Hmm.
can either decide to make a decision to do something about this problem that is costing us all money as we sit in traffic.
Yeah.
But as soon as pressure is applied, and
Mm.
perhaps this is what we saw in Maori seats,
Yeah.
is the political willpower gets lost. And so we don't move forward and
Mm.
we have to try again 3 years down the track, and we're all getting older here, and we're going to run out of time. So I would love to see some transformational changes in decision making, so that we actually, we can see the shift that is going to meet the needs of over 200 cultures we have living here.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So, do you think that is it because of the lack of awareness? Is it because of the previous traditional way of not providing that information, or not having that information ready for the people, or not getting engaged with the people to spread the awareness and the information about indigenous people, about certain things that you really would like to see participation of the people, rather than making decision and then telling them this is what is going to happen? How do you see that as?
Yeah, I think what happened this year, I think what's happened in decisions this year have been really polarized by the central government election.
Mm,
And we've seen the policies that were made by the last government around Three Waters, that were talking around partnership with our treaty partners,
mm,
and that has hit a nerve with some people. So everything to do with partnership and Maori
mm,
has been polarized,
mm.
and we do need to go out and speak to the people. We do need to do that. That's democracy, and not just a legislative requirement, but it's the right way to do it. As soon as we start making decisions and then letting people know what they are, we get ourselves into, we'll divide the community.
Yeah, this is what I wanted to dwell into it more when we talk about Maori wards and Maori health, and then Maori housing, and then Maori, you know, crime things and all of that. That's a complete, we'll come into that. But before that, I wanted to get into the nitty-gritty about the way you are involved in as a counselor. And when counselors come together, always there is a different views of different counselors. However, the commonality of making nation forward is what we come together to work around and make a common goal. You may have a different path to achieve that, as long as it doesn't compromise, as long as it doesn't, undermines or suppress, or, hide certain information, then it's great. But in your view, in your opinion, what's at the moment currently the structure, the system that we are in? Do you think there is a lot of work needs to be done in that space?
Look, I think we do have. So if I talk about Auckland Council and the governing body,
Yeah.
and we all come together, we're probably, if we were going to talk about our political views, we're probably evenly split. So we need to have conversations, and when we have workshops around how we can reach a compromise
Mm,
or not. There's always going to be people who just will not shift. And so then you work with the people you can to see how we can reach the best outcome. I think it's really important to have that shared vision and
mm,
find which way to get there and what has the priority for some over others. And we just need to work together. And I feel that way, about, our new mayor.
mm,
He's thrown a big rock in a big pond, and
mhm,
we're all sort of adjusting
mm,
to working with him, and I can do that.
mm,
So it took a little while to get used to
mm,
him,
mm.
but once you can find that place of respect for each other, and that might mean that you don't always agree, but you can
Absolutely.
have the conversation, and
Absolutely.
we need to be able to leave the room and
Mm,
still be able to come together and work together the next day. There
yeah.
are some politicians that struggle with that, but they are the minority. And the main part, everybody's there to deliver the best outcomes.
Yeah.
But as you rightly point out, we go about it different ways.
Hmm. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's something very challenging for all counselors. But you are the guys, or you are the people who really work hard in and hard out for the betterment of the whole city and for the nation. And I really feel that lots of things, good things needs to come out. But what comes out in the media is what I've seen is mainly he's against that or he's for that.
Yeah.
That's not media should be, really speaking. In my view, let's have the just like what you discuss in the room and council and the Auckland Council, welcoming all the councillors together in one room, you discuss and you agree, disagree, but you discuss. This is something that what needs to come out also into the media, that mainstream, that okay, this is the awareness. It's not about her view or this view, it's what they are trying to achieve. It's what's the end goal that they need to listen, basically.
Yeah. Yes, you're right. And uh, I remember because I think council needs to try and get control of its own media, particularly social media. And I
Yeah.
remember working with Counties Manukau Police several years ago when
Yeah.
they made that conscious decision that they were going to take control of their own media on Facebook. So they would put their own stories out there, their own videos, and it really started working. And we
Mhm.
can see the popularity of that site
Yeah.
because mainstream media weren't doing them any favors. And I
Sure.
think it's an important part, people like you that
Mhm.
can get
Mhm.
have these conversations and also taking control of their own stories. Now, council is very risk adverse when it comes to putting media out,
Mhm.
and we shouldn't be. I mean, all
Yeah.
the bad stories get out there, so how about we
Yeah.
talk about something great that's happening? Because there are good things happening.
Absolutely. And this is what I would like to come out is like and say that, okay, what are the positives that are happening in that room that
Mm,
we are not aware of it? I
yeah,
mean, we can easily talk when we don't know anything. We can blame and we can do all sorts of negative things. But is it what really then you can build a community or based on that? Or do you really want to know what's really happening? Because at the end of the day, this is all taxpayers' money that goes in.
yeah,
And you and I, whether you are in that position, somebody else will be in that position, but this ultimately the money goes from our taxpayers' money. And so we should be knowing what are the positives happening by documents and documents which they create every single day.
yeah.
And out of that, in the media at 6 p.m. news or 7 p.m., it's only comes the what they call it gossips or what they call it the debate,
Yes.
what they call it the conflicts or the disputes. That's all they come. That's all
Yeah.
they come out. And we talk only about the negatives, the dispute. We don't even talk about, oh, what's positive happened today. That
Mhm.
person said. And so I was quite impressed with when I saw your video as well in terms of the Maori ward representation, which was a talk of the town. So I'm going to dwell into this topic now and ask you, like, what really, because this is something I think education, awareness, and what really many people don't know the documents treaty. And many people are not even in this country who may be here for 10 years or 20 years. They are all new people. Every year, an immigration comes in, new people come in, but they are not even been updated about what country have they come in as an immigration policy or as an immigration rules. They should be really telling them, according to my vision and views, so that people know a little bit about what country you are in and who are the people that you have to be with, basically. A little bit of awareness will go a long way rather than no awareness.
Mm.
How do you see that as an indigenous people's awareness has been in this country so far in this nation, in building our nation, really speaking?
Gosh, it's so important, isn't it, that people coming into our country have the history of our country. And of course, we've had the debate over the past few years about the
Yeah,
history not being taught well. It's now it's going to be taught in primary schools.
correct.
From my perspective, in this country, there are two partners who signed a treaty. They would
Mhm,
have been my ancestors because they came from Britain and Scotland. They weren't physically there signing it, but that's
mhm,
where my ancestry comes from. So I call myself tangata tiriti.
mhm.
That is the treaty partner. The other
Absolutely.
partner, tangata whenua.
Mm,
So I have an obligation to uphold the treaty, the conditions of the treaty. And there's arguments whether what equal partnership looks like, but what we have seen in this country, up up until recent years, really, is a terrible treatment of Maori.
mm,
Even to the point where they were segregated away from white people, and um, that's not okay. If we're going to do that with our Indigenous partner, how are we going to treat new immigrants to our country as well?
True.
So the English have, in my view, the English have dominated,
Mhm,
absolutely dominated. And I also hold a view which has been uncomfortable for me, is
mhm,
that there is such a thing as white privilege. White privilege opens doors. I
mhm,
was on um, a community group called Safe Man, Safe Family, which was family violence.
mhm,
And Vic Tamati, who is Samoan, he was the face of White Ribbon.
mhm.
He was violent. He recovered, and now he's determined to stop family violence.
Right.
He couldn't get funding, so I joined his board, and he said to me one day, um, "I'm glad that we can use your white face." And it dawned on me that
Yeah, of
this is
course.
a thing. This
It-
is true. And I said to my grandchildren, I've got two teenage grandchildren who are part Tongan,
Mhm.
about when they go to the shops and do they feel like they get followed around or looked at? Because it's something I've never experienced. So
Yeah.
it happens and it's not okay. So we need to uphold our treaty partner. I think our treaty partner is a tonga for
Mm,
us, a treasure. And
absolutely.
in terms of decision making, we can learn a lot. Honestly, the passion, the love for our environment, our land, the whenua is everything that we can learn from our treaty partner. And also and we talked about policy development. We've
Mm,
developed policy for Europeans.
mm,
That's obvious.
yeah.
And now we expect everybody else to comply.
Mm.
Um, and then we wonder why it doesn't work.
So here I'm going to ask you this, just last year we had two milestone achieved by the previous government, particularly when Jacinda, I heard her recently in an interview also that when she was asked, what is the one thing or two things policy wise that you think that you have done on your own or you've resonated with that rather than somebody telling you, oh, this is what we want, this is what he want. She was proud of two things she said, which is again related to this Maori particular thing, was one, implementing history teaching and history learning in New Zealand school, which is took so many years to do that. When in most of the countries they teach history of their own country.
Mhm.
Particularly in India, we do have history and of our country as well, and particularly other countries as well. They teach history, but New Zealand took a number of years to teach the history. That's one thing she was said, and the other thing she said was the new year that we could enjoy Matariki.
Oh,
Basically,
yes.
that was something a good achievement that she felt good about it. How do you see that it took so many years for something that to happen, and what there may be, as you said, pointed out rightly, the agreement, the treaty is a sacred kind of a document, needs to be really spelled out, presented to the new people, immigrants, and everyone existent as well.
Yeah.
How do you
Uh,
see that? Hmm.
yes, we absolutely should be telling everyone who comes into the country
Hmm.
the history, what we're founded on, because they're coming to live here and they probably want to know. As I said, we're a young country. We don't have to go back too far
Exactly.
to figure out what our history is. We
So
should be
true.
absolutely ashamed that we stopped people from speaking te reo, that
Hmm.
children were punished in school for speaking the Maori language. This
Hmm.
is shameful stuff. So we've got an opportunity to make that right. And what Jacinda did by introducing the curriculum, the history curriculum into our schools, is going a long way actually to make that right. I
Hmm.
wasn't taught it when I was at school.
True.
Never talked about it at home
Hmm.
and didn't really exist probably, for a
Hmm.
lot of people my generation.
Yes.
And I hope that, for my grandchildren, they'll be growing up a lot differently in what they're learning. It is so important. Everyone's got to have their sense of belonging. And I
Hmm.
think important for people like me, I'm fifth generation here. Yet my ancestry is in England. I know nothing about England, Cornwall, where my family were born. So I
Right.
feel a bit rootless myself, because I'm not tangata whenua
Yeah, yeah.
and I don't have any connection with England. So I think it's important for my generation also to be able to get those roots in place
Mm.
by working with our treaty partner.
Mm. The other thing is very good to know from you these things, but also since you have been in that space, you are still in that space. How do you think when it comes to a representation of Maoris or non-white people talking about Maori or defending Maori or actually learning Maori or understanding Maori, do you think there should be a lot of representations in the whole different pockets of agencies and councils and all sorts of things that they should have? So that, because council's job, one of the things which we noted is Auckland Council or any other council, Tauranga or Wellington and all, their role is also to pass on lots of information and awareness and cultural engagements and co-collaboration, social integration and all of that, plus enjoying festivals of cultural and multicultural and international culture. When you have that kind of whole portfolio for a council, how that can be presented or how can it make a difference if we don't have that mindset of people representing these things?
That's exactly right. How do we get the representation to the table? I mean, I've learnt so much myself from being involved in different ethnic groups in my community, which I've loved,
Yeah.
really have. But and I said when I spoke the other day, I can't speak for everybody because I don't really know well enough. I
Mm.
can do my best in representation. The other best way is to get other people elected, other ethnic groups elected to the table to have that voice because this brings a whole new perspective that will blow away
Mm.
the majority, especially at council, who are European,
Yeah.
and having to think about consideration of somebody else's views
Mm.
and what works in that community. And this is the important part about policy change. So while we don't have people elected there with their voice at the table, we have a responsibility to connect with as many
Yeah.
different people and groups as we can, particularly like advocacy groups to really see, because there's a lot of people out there doing good work.
Yes, yes.
Sometimes all they need is funding,
So true.
just so they can carry on and do their work. But unless we have an awareness, then how do we make sure that that happens?
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, very well said that. Because I think that is where we are lacking is how do we make those, transition if they are lacking funding or if they are lacking networking or if they are lacking any kind of a representation where they need the most to make this happen and to build our nation to that level where we can call it. Because I think if I say this, correct me if I'm wrong, I always look at America, people talk about America, America, US. But if you look at US, there is no such thing as like this community or that community. They only say Americans. We are all Americans.
Mm,
And they also respect every single culture in that, and they allow every single culture to express. And that's the beauty of that, basically. So everybody gets developed. Whereas here we are hung up or we get too much bogged down with certain things. As you said rightly, there's a traditionally, if there is one way of looking at things, whether from a white perspective or whether from a non-white perspective, then that's not should be the attitude, basically. Should be a
yeah,
different altogether, right?
yep.
Yeah,
We're all Kiwis,
yeah, we are all key.
We're all Kiwis, and we need to keep saying that,
We need.
and not have a personal view or a position on what what a
Yeah.
Kiwi looks like.
So true. So true. So true. So, in terms of this Maoris that you are working, you were talking the other day, and also with the Maori board representation, of course, at the same time in Australia, there was a referendum on aborigines, and there also they lost. Sorry, excuse me. And here also, we didn't make it to that representation.
Yeah.
Um, how do you want to take this now? What's going to happen in the future in the 2024 coming up for this kind of issues?
I think it sounds like in Australia there was a lot of miscommunication of messages as well, and that got really polarized. There was a misunderstanding of what it meant for a lot of groups, and we saw that here, particularly during
Yeah.
COVID. We saw those different groups pop up and
Yes.
start giving different messages. The
Yeah.
vote on the Maori seats at council was it was complex because there were people voting because they didn't want to have Maori wards and the independent Maori statutory board as well.
Mm.
That was the wrong reason to vote against Maori seats, but that would have swayed probably 4 of those votes, maybe 5.
Sure.
Now, in my
Mm.
view, I mean, independent Maori statutory board have a completely different role and had nothing to do with this particular vote. So
True.
that
Mm.
was like that was a populist vote in my view. And
Mhm.
so I don't think we got a true reflection.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Was there a
Yeah,
misrepresentation there, just like Australia, which was like a something misleading
yeah,
to
yeah.
people's
It
mind?
was deliberate. It
Yeah.
was deliberate.
Mm.
Um, and now we go through and we try and get the seats through for 2028.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think every community has got a group, irrespective of indigenous. Every group is independent as well.
Mm.
So that's nothing special about Maoris having independent or representation or independent boards. That's completely different to what these things.
Yeah, that's right. The other argument was about there's so many people and so many different ethnicities. Why do Maori get a special treatment?
Mm,
Because they're the treaty partner.
mm,
And I would suggest, and I don't know, you're going to have to correct me if I'm wrong, but every person that is from an Indigenous country
yeah,
would feel the same about their own
100%.
culture. So Maori are the treaty partner. That is why they have a special place around the table. And
Mm,
because we've served them so poorly, through all of the years. That doesn't mean that we don't respect and love and welcome every other culture into our
correct,
city or our country.
correct.
Mm.
I think so. Coming up into that Maori space, like we have got recent changes, was like people were having divisive minds. Was one started from the vaccine or from the COVID situation, that whether they were reluctant to have COVID vaccines or not, and started from there a little bit going extreme. And then we saw health board being made, Maori health board, as a separate, given that status for them. But then came along the three waters again with that. And then we saw the gang wars, and then we saw the prison,
Yeah.
and then we saw all this funding that was going towards Maori for this thing, that thing, other thing, everything. And people got like, okay, is it a big favor for Maori only and not everyone? Is it now we are going to be not in the queue for treatment in health and Maoris will be treated first? There were lots of misleading, miscommunication, we can call it.
Mm.
And I think that's where we haven't done good enough as a nation,
No.
because we don't want to be look like in the international arena what we had a image when Jacinda had, or when the Labour previous government, we have created an image in the international that New Zealand people were talking about from the international point of view.
Mm.
Then with these things, then people, we are now making international countries look like that we are nothing different to those other countries of third world nation, or we call it the still not grown up nation,
Yeah.
still underdeveloped. I call it underdeveloped.
Yes, yes,
What,
yes.
how do you see this? How do you see this? I'm fascinated to hear
I,
from you.
I think what Labor tried to do
Yeah,
was to say, we know that our policies haven't been working for Maori. Why not?
yeah,
And so Maori are always saying, for Maori, by Maori, we know how to look after our people.
yeah.
And that's what they've tried to deliver.
Mm,
And it has created division for people who either don't acknowledge the treaty
Yeah.
or who don't think that Maori should have a special place. Why treat them so special? So we hear this,
Mm.
but not everyone starts from the same starting line. We are not all born equally at
Yeah.
all.
Correct.
And we see Maori overrepresented in all the worst statistics in the country. And
Mm.
we have to ask ourselves why, because the little babies that
Mm.
are being killed that are Maori, this is
Yeah,
not their fault.
exactly.
And so, where did that start from? And if we go back and look at people involved, they
Mm.
suffered near the same trauma. And
Yeah.
so, where do we break that cycle?
Mm.
And if we say, okay, then, and you know, different different cultures, ethnicities do have different ways of doing things in their lives and how they work together as family, how they discipline or not, whatever. And all we're saying is that let's give Maori a chance to do it by Maori, but it
Mm.
got polarized. The Three Waters was about saying, let's have Maori at the table to hear their view on water because water is a tonga to them. And also, this is part of the partnership. And things started going downhill after that, didn't they?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is something that I want to understand from my, correct me, my confirmation that, I see humans as normal, different, unique humans, but then they come along together. And when I see Maoris or when these people talk about special to Maori and non-special to non-Maori and all of that, when they talk about, I personally feel in today's modernized world that we live in, Maoris have also like the lots of mixed culture and cross marriages and everything. So they are all integrated already, right?
Absolutely. You're
And
right.
so when it comes to that understanding and acknowledgement first and foremost, then you don't have to deal with all these special and these thinking about like that when you give something to them. What's wrong in it? Because they are also benefiting to what culture they are in at the moment.
Hmm. Yeah.
And from that point of view, I like to see the leadership of people because when you have a mindset that, oh, this is special Maori that you're giving, that means you don't want Maoris to be the leaders or even one first step further. How's your view in that? Like, how do you like to see if tomorrow a Maori prime minister comes along and in the way,
Hmm.
or a South Pacific or Pacific or anyone other
Hmm.
than I mean, isn't it the normal that in the world that we see so many presidents and like Obama and all of that, they came, right?
Yeah.
So we should not have a problem with that. But if you have a special status like that in the mindset, then you will never allow these people to come on that level.
Yes. Yes, that's what's happened. And there's a fear that if Māori are at the table, that they will
Mhm.
try and take. I mean, I've received emails from
Uh-huh.
people saying that, Māori are trying to take over.
Wow.
Um, Now, well, okay, so Europeans have been running the roost for
Hmm.
all of these years. What's the problem now?
Correct.
So, but it does come back to, I think what you're trying to say is, here we should be all equal.
Yeah.
All I would say is that can we acknowledge the treaty partnership
Mm.
and have respect for that and do the best we can to right some wrongs because there have been wrongs, no doubt about it. Um, and and yes, just and I don't know what will happen now. Once we get a new government,
Yeah.
things will change again. By the sounds of it, just going by the campaign
Mm.
messaging.
Yeah.
So we've still got a bit of a road ahead of us.
Yeah, I think this is going to be very fascinating for the treaty, particularly with the ACT party saying we want to review or we want to change and things like that. Again, the information that he wants to rely and the information what other people are going to receive in what sense is again going to be a challenge for counselors like yourself and other people who are
Mm,
in that stakeholder decision making. What exactly are they trying to achieve out of this? Well, bringing the treaty when we have got so many issues that are burning issues,
yeah.
cost of living and all of that. So this is beautiful, Angela. Thank you so much for doing this with me today, and it's an amazing insights to what you have been dealing and challengings with the Maori mindsets or the Maori words that we are talked up today. What's your message to all the listeners that who are listening that, you have been in the space of like both, as you have seen the white, as you said rightly. So, there is no discrimination, there is no racism, there is no definition for you that you are this and I am this. This is all about understanding, acknowledging, accepting the realities and the facts and the evidences that you are dealing with, which is absolutely what I fascinated with. That's what I based on evidences and facts. What's your message to all the listeners who are listening here when it comes to these sort of things that people talk about? I have a non-awareness of Maoris. When the word Maori comes, they don't realize Maoris are also humans, but Maoris are also integrated humans with other cultures. They are not Maoris anymore in reality.
Well, the interesting thing is that with Maori, and no matter how much Maori blood you have,
Yeah,
as little, you are
yeah,
still considered tangata whenua. So,
correct.
but you're right that a lot of Maori have integrated into different races as well. So really, we're just one beautiful fruit salad, aren't we? And
Yeah, absolutely.
we just
We are.
and you're right, it is about understanding each other's idiosyncrasies. At the end of the day, we're all people wanting to live in one of the most beautiful, safest countries in the world,
Correct.
and we seem to try and make it too hard. It shouldn't be that hard.
Yeah, yeah, correct. And I think humanness, kindness, whatever we call, and all the humanness doesn't say, just like COVID doesn't see whether you are Maori or Indian or
No. Mm,
it's like this is what exactly humanness doesn't see whether you're Maori or what. You
mm,
just do the human act, basically. You
yeah,
respect their space, you respect your space, and that's all it is.
yeah.
Um, they are trying to bring unnecessarily, I think, religion versus humans or humanity or spirituality mixed up. But
Yeah,
no, yeah,
yes. I think one thing I'd say, and I said it this week as well, we were trying to resolve we were talking about Maori wards and how we move forward. And
yeah,
what dawned on me is that it was actually Julie, Councillor Ferry, and I, and a couple of
yeah,
others talking about this. And again, we're not Maori. And
yeah.
so it'd be like me trying to advocate for you
Mm.
when actually you make the decisions for you, not me. And
Mm.
so we were just about perpetuating an existing problem. So keep keep in mind that we don't make the same mistakes again.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is great conversation, Angela. I would like to catch up soon on a regular updates. Do you think that we should have the councillors or the councils, Auckland Council being such a big, I'm planning to do something like Auckland updates where, you do reports every quarterly, for
Mhm.
example.
Yep.
And every quarterly, we should have an update of what's really resolutions were passed or gone through or under this. That would give a little bit of insights to all the lovers of community, lovers of people who wants to make a difference, people who wants to come and engage and join. Oh, this is wonderful job that these guys are doing. We should be involved in it. Our skills are related to that, that kind of thing. How do you feel that this is how it should happen through the councils as an program, as a workshop, whatever you call it, to
Yes.
update?
Yep. I think that's a really, really good idea to reach out to your audience because we should use as many channels
Yeah.
as we can.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. With that, I think this is once again, Angela, thank you so much for doing this today. And I would love
Okay.
to catch up with you with these updates as we spoke and create some good social integration and awareness of people to understand who we are as a nation and how can we build our nation together rather than, keep down or make international image thinking that, oh, New Zealand is one of the same countries like another country. It's not
Mm,
different. We
mm,
got to be different, right? We were
mm.
different, basically. So yeah, thanks once again,
Thank
Angela.
you.
And I would love to call you once again back on this show, but bye for now at this point of time. And if anything you want to say, your final word to all the audiences, please do so now, and then we'll catch up.
Yes, look, I would just say, besides being kind to everybody, is do when you see information come from council, do have your say. It's so important. We do listen, we do read. So
Yeah.
have your say.
Absolutely. So, all the listeners, you can see what Angela said, that please get engaged and involved and not make decisions without looking at any evidence or any documents. And then hearsay is very much is very much happening at the moment, is hearsay in the social media that we are living in the system of a social media. But social media also can be powerful if you really make evidence-based and fact-based. And this is something that we will try to do, keep doing it as a positive vision, as a positive nature to do this through our channel. So thank you, Angela. And
Thank you.
we'll come back once again with another topic and another